Hello and welcome. My name is Jane Hedrick, and today we're going to be going over our session from couch to flute expert. If you're looking to start the flute, but you don't really know where to begin, here's the perfect place to come to. We'll be covering a multitude of topics, such as basic identification, assembly, first sounds, articulation, first notes. We'll implement that into melodies and maybe cover some more advanced topics throughout this video. Well, without further ado, let's begin on the flute. So let's go ahead and start and have our case on a flat and hard surface. This is just to be sure that nothing really falls out when we open it. And also make sure that the case is upright. As we can see here, the logo is on top, as most should be. So we can go ahead and unlatch our instrument, and we'll instantly see three parts to the flute. We'll see our foot joint, our head joint, and the body. We'll also see a rod in here, and this is a cleaning rod used for maintenance purposes later. Now, we want to make sure that our flute is correctly in here, and we can see that by if this key is facing down, the pinky key, and we'll also see if the head joint and the foot joint are facing out from the middle. As we can see here, the tenon are both on the outside. So let's go ahead and begin with our first sounds. So let's go ahead and make our first sounds. We're going to be using the head joint for this. We can put the other two parts away in the case for now. So let's hold our head joints by two hands and be sure not to hold it by the lip plate, as it's soldered on and can easily fall out. We also want to make sure the tenon doesn't clake right here against anything, as it's a very thin metal and can be easily dented and further harm our assembly down the road. So let's go ahead and start with our embouchure and how to produce our sound. So we use air, and we use air support and air direction really on the flute. Air direction helps us between registers and gives us a good tone, and air support also supports that tone and our musicality throughout the lines. So let's go ahead and put our lips up onto the lip plate, right? So we're gonna have our chin on most of this part right here, and our lips are gonna come forward, almost like a P sound, P. So if you say P, our lips should be covering 1/3 of this embouchure hole. So let's talk about air now. To have enough air support, let's just blow into the straight of our palm. Now, let's manipulate our air direction. We're gonna go from our palm to our elbow, and we're just gonna be using the top lip and jaw to manipulate this direction, like so. Awesome. So now we're going to take all this and apply it to making our first sounds. So once again, we're going to put the lip plate up to our chin, like so, our lips forward in the P sound, and blow air down. Real quick disclaimer, if you're not getting any sound on the instrument or not a really clear sound, let's address a couple of problems that might be happening. So one thing is the aperture is created in between the wet parts of the lip. So when we say P, it's this hole right here. And sometimes the aperture might be too wide or too big, and our air is too spread, so it won't go directly in the hole and perform a good tone, like so. That would be just like blowing. So an easy way to fix this is make sure our P is a little bit more articulate and smaller. So P, P. Try that here. By closing the aperture, I would be able to focus my air and give a better tone to the instrument. Also, another thing would be air direction. If we're blowing too high or too low, neither will split the air in between that lip plate. You just have to find the right area to get that good tone. A good way to do this is to use actually a Pneumo Pro. Pneumo Pros are really simple and really easy to assemble and can be purchased online. You can open it up here, and it's just a quick assembly. And this basically simulates the head joint of the flute, but it gives literal turbines or wind turbines that show where your air direction is going. So I want to aim for this green one right here. That should be about the direction your air should be going. Also, another quick tip, make sure there's not too much tension in your lips. as we need our top lip to be flexible in going up and down in air direction. So a good way to check on this is to look in the mirror and make sure you're not smiling when doing this. It should be relaxed and in a P formation. Now that we got our first sounds, let's address articulation. Articulation is used across the board for wind players, and it's essentially to begin our notes. Now, articulation is as simple as saying ta, where the tongue, almost the tip, but a little bit behind the tip of the tongue, touches the roof of the mouth, where the gum and your top teeth meet. So, ta, ta, ta. A good way to simulate that you're getting a good support behind that articulation is putting a sunflower seed in between your mouth and seeing how far you can spit it using that syllable, ta. Now, we don't want explosive tongue, where it's holding the tongue and building pressure like this. We don't want that. It would overblow on the flute and many other wind instruments. We just want an articulate. Another way to check this, and in reality of slow motion, our air starts first and our tongue comes after. So this would be in slow motion. But sped up, it sounds like where the air has already started and the tongue follows. So now let's apply this to the head joint and the notes we were playing beforehand. And let's just articulate on the head joint. You try now. So with everything combined, let's put our flute together. So we're gonna grab the head joint and we're gonna grab the body by the tendon. We're gonna make sure not to grab the keys and rods because we don't want them bent or misaligned. And be sure to be careful with the tendon once more, and we can put it in right there. Now we want the head joint, this embouchure hole, to be directly aligned with the majority of keys down the body. We don't want it to be aligned to these two misaligned. We'll just ignore those for now and straight down the center. Now we're gonna do the same thing with the foot joint. We're gonna make sure to hold it by its casing and not the keys and rods. So we'll lightly screw it in. And make sure that this rod right here on the foot joint is also directly aligned with the center of the majority of keys on the body. And we have our flute assembled. So now for hand positions. We have the flute chair in the left hand, which is one of the most important parts of our posture for flute. We're gonna put our flute chair right here where this bottom key is, and our thumb is actually gonna go there too. Our index finger goes on top, and then we skip a key, we'll have the middle finger, ring finger, and then pinky finger. Now, the flute chair provides tension against the chin so that there's no wiggling and moving while we're playing, as you can see here. Now, for the right hand, we're gonna put our index, middle, and ring finger on the last three of the body, and our thumb is naturally, like a C, if we were to let our hand rest, go underneath, almost in between 1 and 2. And we'll have our pinky at the very end. Now, we want to make sure that our thumb doesn't slide out and that we don't have straight fingers, as it'll cause tension in our playing. So, it should be like this, where the thumb is holding it up and the flute chair is pushing against our chin. Now, we want our flute to be almost horizontal, not all the way, but almost. And we want everything back, head and neck, to be straight up aligned while we're playing so that air can freely move through and there's no tension. And our legs are flat on the ground and we are sitting straight up, like so. And that's your posture and basic assembly for the entire flute. With everything combined, let's make our first note. Now we're gonna put our pinky on this key right here, and all others will be resting on top but not activating the keys. And we're gonna be using our index, so our index will be down all the way, and our thumb on the long key will also be activated. So, one thumb and pinky on the right hand. And blow like you did on the head joint. That's a B. Now, it's really simple. We're gonna add two other notes, A and G. So, all that we have to do is we have B, and then we're gonna put down A, and then G. So, like this. Awesome! Now, there's one thing really left that we need to talk about before we start playing a melody, and that's breathing. Breathing is so important for wind instruments, but it's especially important for the flute because there's no tension behind your breaths and behind your playing in the instrument. So with breathing, we need to have supported air. That means breathing through the mouth, where everything is just full and encapsulated, and we have our abdomen almost pushing out with support. So a good way to check this and a good way to acknowledge that we have a quality breath would be with the knuckle exercise. We put our knuckle up to here, and we are looking for that low pitch, fast and low. We don't want this, as it's shallow. We want a deep, low, and fast breath before we play, like so. Now, when we have our flute on our body, we cannot open and take the flute off. We have to keep that flute chair pushing against our chin the entire time. So how breathing looks is like this, where our jaw just directly comes down and comes back up. The upper lip doesn't move and nothing else moves, as it will interfere with our playing. So we just move the jaw and come right back up to where we were playing. So. All right, y'all, let's play our first melody, Mary Had a Little Lamb, with B, A, and G. Ready? 1, 2, ready? Great job, y'all. I have one last quick tip of advice for you before you go on your own flute journey, and that is vibrato. Vibrato is used everywhere among flute players, and it is essential to modern day flute playing. Vibrato is very simple and easy to recreate. We don't create it through the throat, we actually recreate it through the abdomen, saying ha ha ha, like this. Now, the best vibrato is one that uses wide and fast vibrato. We don't want it too narrow and we don't want it too slow either. So it should sound like this. And here's another example of what it would sound like. So after you're done with your instrument, make sure to swab it. We want to get all that moisture out, and we don't want to put it into a deep, dark cave where it will be essentially a petri dish if we don't get all of our moisture out. So we want to grab our cleaning rod, as so, and we want to have a microfiber cloth that either comes with the flute, or you can get it at your local music store, and you could put it right through here. And we're just going to wrap it around, covering all parts of this rod, and make sure the tip is covered as well, so we don't poke anything, like so. And we're gonna run it through our foot joint. We're gonna get all the moisture out. We're gonna push it through. We're gonna take our foot joint off because it is clean now, like so. Sometimes it likes to be a little finicky. And now we're gonna put our foot joint back into the case. And we can put our rod through the body. We can take our body off now and pull it all the way through, put the body in safely into the case. And now, once again, just make sure everything is covered and put it through that head joint, scrub around, and we have all of our moisture out. And that should take care of the moisture situation. And we are all good to close our case and conclude our time with the flute. Now, we'll also have a little bonus session here of extended techniques with the flute that you can experiment with and mess around with in your own time. But in the meantime, thank you for joining this session, and I wish you well on your journey playing the flute.